I listened to lawyers on both sides last night, and they were talking about things that had just nothing to do with it. I listened to a panel of judges, and I'll comment on that. I will not comment on the statements made by certainly one judge. But I have to be honest that if these judges wanted to, in my opinion, help the court in terms of respect for the court, they do what they should be doing. I mean, it's so sad. They should be, when you read something so simple and so beautifully written and so perfectly written, other than the one statement, of course, having to do with he or she. But when you read something so perfectly written and so clear to anybody, and then you have lawyers, and I watched last night in amazement, and I heard things that I couldn't believe. Things that really had nothing to do with what I just read. And I don't ever want to call a court biased, so I won't call it biased. And we haven't had a decision yet. But courts seem to be so political, and it would be so great for our justice system if they would be able to read a statement and do what's right.
Breaking news at noon. We continue to follow those reports of shots fired on I-95 in Lake Worth. We want to go right out to our Ted White because, Ted, we're learning that there now could be a second scene where a driver is shot.
That's correct, and police are investigating both of those incidents. Right now, we're on northbound I-95, just north of Hypaluxo Road. We did get a closer look at that dark-colored sedan down there on I-95, just to the left of the fast lane, and we have seen bullet holes in the rear windshield of this vehicle. Now, the driver appears to be okay. The Florida Highway Patrol, Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputies, and even Boynton Beach Police are talking with this woman. Now, as relation to that second incident that you were talking about, Boynton Beach Police are saying that there was another incident at Gateway and I-95. You should see that picture there. They are saying that a driver has been shot at that location, and Boynton Beach Police are on scene. They are investigating. No word yet on the condition of that driver and whether or not he or she were taken to the hospital, or if it's something even more tragic with that, if that person is still alive. We do not know at this point. We'll continue to gather more information from Boynton Beach Police about this situation here, but two separate scenes. One person shot at Gateway and I-95. The second, shots fired at this vehicle. The driver appears to be okay.
A convoy of 3 ICRC vehicles with 8 of our staff were driving south from Sheboygan. They were on their way to do a distribution of livestock feed for some villages south of Sheboygan in Jiaozhen province. They were attacked on the way down by some unknown gunmen, and 6 of our colleagues were shot and killed, and 2 of our colleagues are still unaccounted for. We're absolutely devastated by this news. We don't know who's behind, and we don't know the motives behind this attack.
Well, dozens of people are suing the former director of a closed memory loss clinic in Toledo, claiming the center falsely diagnosed them with Alzheimer's disease or dementia. Many of them spent months in treatment while planning for their final years, like quitting their jobs, selling possessions, only to learn later that the diagnosis wasn't true. One patient, because of the diagnosis, committed suicide. The lawsuit centers around the clinic's former director, Sherry Ann Jenkins, who opened the center in Toledo, Ohio back in 2015. The plaintiffs say she has no medical license and wasn't authorized to perform medical tests.
President Trump went after federal judges for suspending his travel ban. He hinted politics made the courts do it. Trump took aim at the judges before a crowd of law enforcement officials at the winter conference of the Major Cities Chiefs Association in Washington.
It would be so great for our justice system if they would be able to read a statement and do what's right.
A U.S. appeals court will rule soon on whether a federal judge had legal grounds to suspend Trump's travel ban and if the court order should be lifted. Trump also targeted the appeals judges as he read from the Immigration and Nationality Act.
He may, by proclamation, and for such period as he shall deem necessary. So here it is. People coming in. Suspend the entry of all aliens, right? That's what it says. It's not like, again, a bad high school student would understand this. Anybody would understand this.
The Department of Defense says it needs a space inside Trump Tower for daily tasks. Only it looks like it'll have to pay rent. Military staff, separate from the Secret Service, are always near the president. For instance, those who handle the so-called nuclear football containing the president's launch codes travel everywhere with him. Although President Donald Trump now lives in the White House, his wife and youngest son still live in a Trump Tower penthouse. The military said it's aiming for a space close to that penthouse, but that would likely make it more expensive. Officials haven't said how much they want to spend. According to CNN, renting a floor in the tower costs about $1.5 million a year. The Secret Service already has a space in the tower near the First Lady and her son. It's unclear exactly how much space the service rented or how much it pays for rent. The Washington Post notes the military has had similar setups for past presidents, like Barack Obama's house in Chicago. The difference here is President Trump has yet to show he's separated himself from the Trump Organization, which would get the military's rent payments.
Reuters has learned President Donald Trump plans to issue an executive order nixing a conflict minerals rule. That rule requires companies to tell investors whether their products contain tantalum, tin, gold, or tungsten mined from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Human rights groups pushed for that rule, hoping it would help curb the funding of armed groups. The rule was tucked into the Dodd-Frank reform, even though it's not related to the financial crisis. Business groups have opposed it, complaining that it costs too much and forces companies to furnish politically charged information that is irrelevant to making investment decisions. Reuters could not find out when the executive order will be issued or exactly what it will say.
To run special operations ground missions against suspected terrorists in the wake of the recent raid there that claimed so many civilian lives. Does that not undercut the administration's ability to fight terrorism in that region, and do you stand by your assessment that it's a success?
Absolutely. Well, I'll take the last one first. It's absolutely a success. And I think anyone who would suggest it's not a success does disservice to the life of Chief Ryan Owens. He fought knowing what was at stake in that mission, and anybody who would suggest otherwise doesn't fully appreciate how successful that mission was, what the information that they were able to retrieve was, and how that will help prevent future terrorist attacks. I understand that. I think my statement's very clear on that, Kristen. I think anybody who undermines the success of that raid owes an apology and a disservice to the life of Chief Owens. Hold on, Kristen, can I answer the question? I'm answering the question. Please let me finish. The raid, the action that was taken in Yemen was a huge success. American lives will be saved because of it. Future attacks will be prevented. The life of Chief Ryan Owens was done in service to this country, and we owe him and his family a great debt for the information that we received during that raid. I think any suggestion otherwise is a disservice to his courageous life and the actions that he just took. Full stop. With respect, I'm sorry, what was the first part?
Is that your message to Senator John McCain?
That's my message to anybody who says that. Anybody. I don't know how much clearer I can be, Kristen.
Kellyanne Conway isn't the only member of the administration making up terror attacks. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, in recent interviews, mentioned a terror attack in Atlanta when promoting President Trump's travel ban. What do we say to the family that loses somebody over a terroristic event, whether it's Atlanta or San Bernardino or the Boston bomber? He said in a January 29th appearance on This Week. One day later, appearing on NBC's Morning Joe, he again mentioned Atlanta. Too many of these cases that have happened, whether you're talking about San Bernardino, Atlanta, they've happened. Boston, Spicer said, the answer is we act now to protect the future. While well-publicized attacks did happen in San Bernardino and Boston, no known Islamist attack has ever occurred in Atlanta. None of the incidents Spicer mentioned, even the bogus Atlanta one, involved attacks from countries listed in Trump's travel ban. It's unclear what Atlanta attack Spicer was speaking about, as White House officials have not responded to a request for clarification.